then you can be in this fully anchored version of yourself and show up in the outside world and really put that to the test. Really be curious in a place, in an environment where you actually don't have control, but you can find yourself in that sense of control, sense of knowingness within yourself, and how can you align and integrate that with the outside world. What is up, Wavy Souls? Welcome back to another episode here on the Wavy Self podcast, where we talk about the healing connection through expression and the endless complexities that come along with it. Y'all, I'm doing my first solo cast in video format, so if you have the time, tune in on our YouTube videos. I don't know. I was about to say I don't know where this is going to air, but I do know. So if you are listening to this podcast, make sure to support us over there on YouTube. It would just mean so much to me. Today, we're going to be talking about self-care to self-love. And this is actually a topic that a lot of you have been DMing me about, which I completely understand and resonate with, because with the amount of information that's out there, the amount of lack of information that's out there, it would make sense why there's so much confusion around what the fuck self-care actually means. So I want to break it down for you guys in a way that is easily digestible, memorable, and just makes sense. I can sit here and talk about plant medicine, ayahuasca. I can talk about going on retreats. I can talk about going to seminars and going to these, things that feel so out of reach, not just with our schedules, but also financials. We can actually sit here and talk about so many things that you could be doing that is more trendy and common in the spiritual community, in the spiritual world. But I'm going to sit here and actually talk to you about things that are so within your reach. And I want you to feel by the end of this episode that you yourself have the very power to make that switch right now in this very moment. Even just by tuning into this episode, you're already cultivating the intention to be a better you. And when it comes to having this radical self-love, it really does come down to having self-care and having an unshakable self-care practice, because it is a practice. It's a sacred practice that you set for yourself. And maybe no one gets that, but you do. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being curious about yourself and for just being devoted to your own self-exploration. And that is something that I've honestly found so much confidence in. And it's actually the very thing that people compliment me the most on, is how I know myself the most. And that truly has come from my self-care practices. So let's get started. If you have a notebook, unless you're driving, make sure that you're writing this stuff down, or open your notes app. If you're whatever you're doing, find a way to make this something that you can come back to. Writing things out is always the best way to make sure you're actually digesting things and you're not just listening. We can read a book and read about it and, really like the book, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're embodying what we learned in the book. So while you're listening to this episode, make sure to write stuff down. Yeah. So I really want you to picture self-care to self-love, a journey that starts from within and it extends itself without. So we first want to think about cultivating a sacred space. And this sacred space really looks so different for so many people. We can talk about things that other people are doing, but it really comes down to the practices that you do, comes down to the intention that you put behind everything. Intention behind everything is what creates this sacred space. And what does that even mean? What does sacred space even mean? So you want to feel confident, secure, and fully aware of the world within yourself. And the way that I love to do that myself is by creating intimacy within myself, creating an intimate place that I can go to in times of turbulence, or if I'm in a situation where I'm having like a bad conversation, I don't really feel like this conversation adds value to me. So I go inwards and I take a breath, or I lean into my tool belt of practices to regulate myself and my nervous system. So when it comes to creating sacred space, I have a little notepad here. I just like to make sure that I'm fully giving you guys the information that you deserve. So when it comes to creating sacred space, this looks like having sex with yourself. It looks like having energy cleansing or protection spells. It looks like body love, oiling your body with coconut oil or baby oil, going really slow and finding that sensual feeling within yourself. And that might feel a little awkward right now, even thinking about doing that to yourself. You might not even be familiar with that even is like, and I find it so fascinating that when we talk about having sex with yourself, it's such a weird topic. Even with my open friends, they're very open-minded. But when I talk about sex with myself, or when I talk about sensuality, sexuality, it becomes this you can just feel the resistance, and that's okay. But I think becoming familiarized with it and having conversations around it is what's going to inspire more people to normalize this. And I think that we all should be in a state of normality when it comes to being comfortable around our bodies, comfortable with nudity, comfortable with sex, comfortable with, just the natural sacred source of energy that we have within ourselves. And you can also find sacred spaces within how you express yourself. So spending time getting creative, really channeling your inner artist. And the way you can do that is writing, singing, using your voice. Maybe it's not even singing. Maybe it's like public speaking on a topic, speaking on justice. It could also be filming something, doing photo shoots. It could be any form of outlet. It could be creating a podcast episode, or it could be anything that you can really channel and create this sense of flow. Oh, I just hit the mic. Create this sense of flow within yourself. So finding that sacred space through your creativity and your intimacy is really, really important here. And the reason why we want to have that sacred space is to feel that anchoring in, right? We're so used to being stimulated visually, but also just in our ideation. We're so stimulated in our minds. We're always thinking about things, especially with social media. We are creating these parasocial relationships where they take up so much mental space. Like our literal mental landscape is taken up by whatever's happening with Love Island or whatever social media wants to push on us, because it is all an agenda. Our algorithms are there to distract us. So when we're so in our head, when we're so visually stimulated, we want to be able to have these sacred practices to anchor us back in. So really asking yourself how to create this sacred solitude. How do you say no to things in order to say yes to yourself? Do you have to go out this weekend? Do you need to hang out with your friend that day? Do you really need to help your family member with moving? Can you actually start rejecting other things so that you can become a little bit selfish in order to become selfless? Because in order for you to fill up other people's cups, you have to have your own cup filled, right? So really thinking about it in a way, how can I go inward and ask myself, what am I neglecting in my life? So if you've listened to my own story, you know that I've found so much sacredness in doing photo shoots. And they're just so fun and unserious to me. Like I think about my family seeing my sexy photos, or like I love getting creative and I love utilizing my body as an art form. I think of my body as an art form. I think of other people's bodies as an art form, whatever shape, whatever size, whatever color, like it's all beautiful. Natural beauty exists all around us and it exists within us as well. So embracing my body, going out and taking photos with my partner or with friends, creating this like showing up intentionally really allows me to show up authentically. When I think about doing a photo shoot, I don't think about what is this person going to think or what is my followers going to think. I don't prioritize other people's perceptions. I prioritize my own well-being. I prioritize celebrating my body. How can you celebrate your body? How have you not celebrated your body? How have you actually stopped yourself from being in celebration of your body for the benefit of someone else? So, sacred space, creating familiarity within your body, because this is our temple. Our body is our temple. This is the bridge from our spiritual realm to this 3D realm. This is how we experience life. This is our human experience, and it happens through this temple. So in order to feel anchored in, releasing the constant agitation of ideas and trendy sounds and busy, disconnecting from that and actually tuning into all of our senses through our touch, sight, smell, speaking, hearing. How can we really tune into this physical dimension and bring ourselves down to earth? So, like I said, it all comes down to your intention within everything. I mentioned sex. So what does that look like? What does having sex with yourself look like? There's a thing called yoni mapping, which is all about the pussy. It's you spending intimate time with your pussy and being in front of a mirror and being able to explore what feels good, what feels a little intense, what feels you can have a feather so you can go a little bit lighter, what feels comfortable for you, and really prioritizing that. And then that one I think I mentioned in my Find Your Sexy I did. This could be grabbing a handheld mirror and really just bringing it down to your yoni and allowing yourself to fully see all the folds, fully see all the pubes, fully see it for what it is, the colors, the size. There's so many. Every single pussy is beautiful. So trying to come in from the lens of your perfection and finding the perfection while you're yoni mapping and really creating that bond within yourself, because not a lot of us women especially, have grown up to be disconnected with ourselves and our bodies because of society and the patriarchal system. So we are not just doing this sacred space unity within ourselves for ourselves. It's actually creating a ripple effect in society by us breaking that societal expectation of rejecting ourselves, right? We have grown up to reject ourselves and be in competition with one another. So embodying that beauty and encouraging other women to see that perfection within themselves is what's going to change the future in long term. So I also mentioned having shower cleanses or bath cleanses and doing protection spells. Like I said, everything is created through intention. So whatever you want to come up with when it comes to spells, create a spell that you can repeat over and over as a mantra, maybe in your mind, or maybe you can chant it out loud when you're showering. Maybe something like, I am cleansing with this water as it touches my body, and I invite the positivity to come through. I am cleansing my body with this water and inviting joy to be my leader. Anything that comes through naturally, that is your specific spell, and you can chant that while you're showering. My personal practice when it comes to cleansing showers, I love rubbing baby oil before I leave the water. So right before I'm about to walk out of the shower, I just pour body oil over my body, and that tends to actually moisturize my body a little bit better. For those of you who might not even know this, if you have a little bit of breakout around your bum, body oil, baby oil helps the bum, helps the skin be moisturized. So I really take my time when I'm oiling my body after my showers. I look at myself in the mirror and I'm just appreciating everything and really allowing myself to take up the space and the time to be nurtured, to be taken care of, whatever that looks like for me. For me, it looks like massaging myself with the body oil. For you, it might look different. It might be brushing your hair a little bit longer. It might be, I don't know, doing braids, or maybe it's just laying on the ground of your bathroom floor, but naked. That could be sacred space. So really cultivating that for yourself, and that just requires your time and attention and your own exploration. So being curious with that too. Another way to cultivate a sacred space is also being in unity with other women. I found a lot of a lot of my own shadow awakenings I've been able to let go of by just being in a sacred container with other women who are embodied, who are also on that self-explorative journey. It's such a beautiful, unique experience to be in unity with women who are also devoted to their own unraveling. So I would encourage you to find those groups, find those goddess circles, find yoga classes, find woman-centered workshops, retreats, anything like that, that will strengthen your relationship with yourself. Because as we experience other women and other people, we are able to experience ourselves to that same depth. So the more open we are to other people in a sacred container, the more we can actually explore within ourselves. So I would definitely encourage you to step out of your comfort zone there and find that sacredness with other people. So as we cultivate and develop this relationship, this bond with ourselves, this familiarity around our body and our temple, we want to get into creating rituals. You want to have something that's consistent in your life. It's creating this tool belt of yours. I mentioned that earlier. You want to have a tool belt. It doesn't mean that it has to be perfect. Doesn't mean that you have to do everything by the list. When you're creating rituals, you understand the intention behind why you're doing it. So this could look like every morning and every night, the first 2 hours and the last 2 hours of your day is dedicated to your own morning and nighttime routine. So for me, what that looks like is I'm waking up in the morning. I am going on a walk right away. I'm literally rolling out of bed, putting on my shoes. I can be all with my hair up in a bun. I'm grabbing my shoes at 7:30 and I'm going on a 30-minute walk with my pit bull. I don't even listen to a podcast. I just walk in the pure silence of nature. So I'm immediately touching the sunlight. I'm immediately grounding myself. And that is important to me. Grounding yourself first thing is so, so important. Do not touch your phone within those first 2 hours. In fact, don't even sleep with your phone inside the room. If you don't know about EMFs, your phone radiates EMFs, which is electromagnetic field, and they actually cause sleep disturbances. I'm going to read you this list. Sleep disturbances, including insomnia, headache, depression, depressive symptoms, tiredness, fatigue, lack of concentration, changes in memory. They've also even said that it's like this, having this instantaneous access to information creates actually a little bit of ADHD. And these are just things to really keep in mind. Like, when you are opening your phone, when you first wake up, you are creating this susceptibility to your mind to consume someone else's lifestyle. Like, if you compare yourself when you're consuming someone else's content and you're opening your phone first thing, you are already placing yourself in a situation where you're not going to love yourself. You are already placing yourself into a situation where you're consuming someone else's mentality, the way that they choose to exchange their energy, the way that they view the world. Like, you need to be able to ground yourself and anchor yourself first. So creating that ritual in the morning and at night, what does that look like for you? What do you absolutely need in order for you to feel grounded? Other examples of morning rituals for me is making sure that I get my meditation in, making sure that I read a book or do some shadow work, some journaling, some deep journaling, or it could be just lying on my loft, lying in this room and just embracing the silence. Something, not your phone. Create a boundary with your phone. Now, when it comes to creating a ritual at night, what does that look like? For me, it's making sure that I am flossing my teeth, brushing them, cleaning my retainers, putting them on, allowing myself for some skincare routine. For me, this allows my nervous system, my body to understand that I'm getting ready for bed, and this actually induces a better sleep. So making sure that whatever you're doing, you're taking your time with it, you're really winding down, and then your body starts to remember, like, okay, I'm waking up, okay, I am winding down. It also helps to wake and sleep when the sun wakes and sleeps. And I know that's a little bit difficult with everybody's work schedule, but if you can on your days off, try to sleep and wake at the same time as the sun. Another ritual that I've really been enjoying lately is whatever takes 2 minutes or less to clean it up right then and there. If it takes longer than 2 minutes, then wait once a week or once a month to do a really big deep cleaning. But if you are waking up and there's a mess everywhere, or if your bed's undone, I guarantee you that the stuff that's right in front of you will take 2 minutes or less to clean. And when you start creating that as a ritual, you start to see just how valuable it is to give your attention to something for 2 minutes and how much you can get done. So creating a ritual like that has been such a game changer in my life, because not only when I have a chaotic schedule, there's my makeup's everywhere, my clothes everywhere, my bed's not done. The loft has my dog's toys everywhere, my socks are everywhere, my coffees are everywhere. But when I start, literally time yourself for 2 minutes, you will be so surprised on how much you get done. So I really challenge you to actually adopt that ritual, because we live in such a fast-paced world, and it really makes you feel like there's this huge quest to have a clean home. And it's really not. Doing the very immediate things is going to feel so mentally clearing. So like I keep saying, as is microcosm, so is the macrocosm. So if your living space is cluttered, your mental space is cluttered. How we live our lives, especially in our homes, is a direct reflection of how we're actually living in our mental landscape. So, as like I said, we are moving from a sacred space, creating the safe container within ourselves. We are now extending it out into our living space. So, where do you think you can use support in your living space? How can you streamline having a cleaner space? Is it washing the dishes as soon as you're done using them? Or is it making sure that you wash the dishes at night so that in the morning you wake up in a clean space? Is it wiping all of the counters, making sure the counters don't feel sticky? Doing a quick sweep, a quick mop? What could be the thing that you need right now to feel like you have some mental clarity by having a cleaner space? Another way you can adopt more rituals is if you work with more like a customer service atmosphere, if you're like a hostess, a server, if you work in the serving industry, or a concierge for hotels, you can start having these rituals of cleansing your energy, lighting an incense candle, burning frankincense that's really good for cleansing, and allowing yourself to have something that intentionally clears your channels from the outside world. And making sure that you do that once a week, at the very, very least once a week. Something that creates an intention of, I am now separating myself, grounding myself from the outside world, and creating that really big distance, and also inviting a protection of, if you're an empath, for me, for example, I love inviting a protection spell for holding people at an energetic boundary. So what that looks like for me is I'm envisioning a little circle building up at my heart space, and with every breath, I invite that circle to start opening, and it becomes this large sphere around my body. And then at arm's length, that's where I hold everybody's energy, and I protect myself, and I actually tune into that with every breath that I take. So anytime I'm in a conversation, or I'm in a situation where I'm not deeply aligned and I take note, I start to take a breath and I tune into my breath. And with every breath, that sphere is invited. And I try to picture like colors, like maybe it's blue, maybe it's purple. Right now it's blue. And just really connecting with myself in that sense, because we hold the power. We hold the free will and this magic that we can tap into at any given space. So when we create that sacred space, we can move into those sacred rituals, and then we can start integrating it with the outside world. So do you see the flow that I'm going through is first channeling, anchoring in with yourself, making sure that reflects into your home, and then being and having the capacity to integrate and be curious with how you're showing up in the outside world. What I mean by that is, are you yelling at the clerk who got your order wrong? Are you yelling or talking back to I was just at a store, at a clothing store, and the girl didn't pack my belly ring and I had to go back. And she was really upset that I had to go back and was convinced that I was lying. And is there a reaction happening? Is there something coming up? And are you listening to that emotional reaction when it comes to interacting with other people, when it comes to driving, when it comes to just interacting with the outside world? The reason why I highlight this as your self-care practice is because when you're anchored into yourself, when you understand the wholeness that exists within yourself, you can then understand the wholeness that exists with other people and other things and other existence, all other things that exist within your energetic field. So self-care is also about how you treat others, but also how you listen to your emotional reactions. And are you being controlled by your emotions, or are you tuning into your body, nurturing yourself, and able to react authentically and come from a place of love when in any situation? So really think about, where am I lacking to show up with love? And how does that reflect directly back to my own self-love? Everything's a mirror. So if everything's a mirror, what are the very things that I'm angry about this person that I'm actually angry within myself? What are the things that I'm judging in this other person, or the thing that irritates me about this person that I'm actually rejecting within myself? So go with that curiosity, follow the breadcrumb, follow the trigger, follow the emotional reaction, and ask yourself, how is this a direct reflection to me? When it comes to integrating your sacred self, your self-care, your self-love to the outside world, you have to start playing with mental boundaries. So I keep mentioning having conversations that aren't aligned. So this is exactly what I mean when you're integrating these self-love practices and bringing them into the real world. You're going to find yourself in conversations with things that don't align. You're going to find yourself questioning, why am I friends with this person? Why am I in this situation? Why am I at this party? Why am I out tonight when I shouldn't be spending money? You're going to be in those situations and they're going to be unpleasant. But what's so important here is that when you find yourself in those moments, create a mental boundary. What I mean by that is, there's no point in ruminating in the dislike of something if it doesn't bring you any value, right? Money is energy, and energy is our currency. We pay for everything through our energy. Just like people pay you for your business, or if you're a social media creator, you're getting paid. People want you to use up your energy and get paid through it. So if it doesn't pay you, if it doesn't add value, then it doesn't deserve any mental landscape. It doesn't deserve any mental real estate. Let me redo that part. So if it doesn't pay you and it doesn't add value to your life, there's no reason why you should be ruminating and allowing this thing to take up mental real estate. So how do you create that boundary when you're in those situations? Like I mentioned, creating that protection spell, tuning into your breath, and also understanding that how someone shows up for themselves does not reflect how you're showing up for yourself. You can have a non-judgmental seat in situations like this when you can recognize, oh, this is not what I'm aligned with. And I'm just going to do what I need to do, say what I need to do in the most loving way to create distance between me and this person, or me and this situation, and move on. It doesn't have to be a moment where you take away your love and treat them a specific way to make them feel bad. You just respect them as a whole, as you respect yourself, because you would want that as well, and create the distance that you need. And that could look like saying something like, oh, I actually need to walk away for a second. Or maybe that's listening and holding space for them and not being judgmental. Or maybe that's being honest and saying, hey, I really don't want to talk about the gossip of that TV show. I would love to know how you're doing and what your aspirations are. Take it down that route. You can take that leadership role and really understand that you can use your voice in creating these relationships or in integrating your self-care, self-love. And that brings me into my next small little tidbits that I would love for you to take away. So before I get into that, I mentioned creating a sacred space. This means creating intimacy with yourself through spiritual cleansing showers, cleansing bath, creating body love, yoni mapping, having sex with yourself, expressing yourself through creativity, through art, and really embodying your inner artist through photo shoots, speaking, writing, videography, whatever that looks like for you is creating that intimacy, that journey with yourself, so that then you can show up clearly in your rituals, in your day-to-day, in your home, and let that mental clarity reflect back to you in your living space. And that can look like washing the dishes right away, being very present as you're touching the water from the sponge and squeezing the soap and being very intentional about every motion with your washing the dishes, or having your morning and nighttime practices where you're journaling or reading or listening to a guided meditation, something that you can be consistent with, so that then you can be in this fully anchored version of yourself and show up in the outside world and really put that to the test. Really be curious in a place, in an environment where you actually don't have control, but you can find yourself in that sense of control, sense of knowingness within yourself, and how can you align and integrate that with the outside world. And in doing so, having those aligned conversations, fully voicing your opinions, meaning what you say and saying what you mean in the outside world, so that people can actually digest your energy and therefore then change their energetic field by the simple interaction of such an aligned, self-loved person, inspiring them to love themselves, inspiring them to think a little bit deeper and to reflect a little bit more when they're at home and wonder, oh, wow, what that person said really struck a chord. So integrating with that, with the outside world, it's an act of self-love and self-care, yes, but it's also an act of loving the entire existence of this world. When we can show up from a whole, authentic place, we inspire others to show up whole and authentically. And that changes generational trauma, that changes societal limitations, that changes for the long-term effects forever. So really think about how this will affect the people that you love and the people that you don't even know. So moving into my next tidbits, in case all of that kind of didn't, maybe you don't remember this or anything I said, but at least with this next part, I want you to be able to tune into as a safe keep, very simple, but very powerful technique, which is tuning into your 5 senses. Starting with speaking. How can you speak up? So many of us are frozen in what to say, because we don't want to say the wrong thing, because we don't want to be rejected, because we've been rejected in the past, or we've been made fun of in the past, and that's just too scary. So how can you step through the fear of listening to your own voice in video, or listening to your voice in a podcast, or listening to yourself speak in front of the classroom? How can you really challenge yourself in ways that you've not done before because of fear? Another way to activate your speaking is through chanting and singing. Singing is such a powerful way to tune in, and even humming. I love to hum. When I'm in a stressed or an anxious state, I start to hum and I start to sing whatever song comes to mind, or I actually just like to feel the vibration of my voice at my throat. And even if it's nonsense, just hearing myself speak allows me to take up that space and, again, create familiarity and really love myself through that, give myself the love that I was lacking growing up. So really think about maybe looking up chanting. There's so many things to chant in so many different languages. There's so much beauty there. So I really encourage you to find a YouTube video that resonates and try to mimic this person chanting. really channeling through song is such a beautiful way to sink into your body as well. And I really already pressed on, creating that sacred space by creating intimacy with yourself. But touch is such an important value when we are familiar with our own touch, our own hug, when we can take a little bit longer hugging our best friend or hugging our family members, really embracing our touch, allowing us to be fully present in that slow movement and that very intentional touch allows us to sink in and embrace. In fact, it might even make you cry. If it makes you cry, let that cry come out. It's beautiful. It's natural. It just means that your body's really yearning for physical touch. And we as humans are programmed to yearn for touch. So if you've not been touched, touch yourself. If you've not hugged your most important people in your circle, hug them, hold their hand, touch their hair, touch their face, hold their face, and just be in awe and appreciation for their existence. No one hears that enough. I promise you, your loved ones have not heard you enough say how much you love and appreciate them. And you can do that through your presence, through your very touch. And when it comes to sight, seeing things versus speaking, I love to practice going to the park, observing everybody. I love observing the sunset. Yes, of course, the beauty in sunsets and really activating my sense of observation instead of speaking. Like I try to hold myself and my speaking at a minimum when I'm creating a sacred ritual around witnessing beauty. So that could look like, going to the park, watching the sunset. That could be lying in your backyard and observing the bugs, letting the ladybug journey across the tile, and even lighting a candle. The simple act of watching and witnessing a fire, the flame is so present and it does so many things as it bends through the air. Anything that induces you to really observe things in appreciation is such an instant way to find that presence and find that meditative state and grounding yourself and anchoring yourself, especially in a place where you might find yourself a little anxious, really taking a zoomed out perspective, no matter where you are, and just appreciating the simple existence for this very moment. And when it comes to listening, your hearing sensations, you really want to think about what am I consuming that is not adding value to my life? What am I listening to? What podcasts am I tuning in? What drama am I gravitating towards? Am I loving what's on Love Island, for instance? That's been pushed a lot on everybody's social media. Am I really into the drama that's happening there? Am I watching reality TV shows more than I'm spending reading my books about self-development? Really think about what are the things that you want to continue to improve on, and what are the things that are taking up space that's stopping you from doing that? So what are you tuning into that's taking up that space that doesn't need to be there? And you can also tune in with your hearing the birds in the morning, the chirping in the morning, the sounds of the cars. When you wake up in the morning, I love to just tune into what's happening on the outside world and just listen. Even when I'm talking to friends, I love to just listen. Even if I have an opinion or if I want to say something and I don't want to forget it, I tune into my breath and I anchor in. I watch my emotional reaction. I watch what's coming up instantly and I go the opposite way. How can I be more present? How can I tune in to this love of mine and be more present? And the last two senses, smell and taste, the most simplest ways that I can say to tune into these senses is to try new recipes, cook at home, try new spices, new herbs, go to a new restaurant. What do you love about the food at this restaurant? What are the aromatics around it? Are you loving the turmeric or the paprika? Can you smell cinnamon? What new dessert can you try? It doesn't even have to be things that you're consuming. It could be aromatherapy. It could be essential oils in your bathtub. It could be the essential oils from your diffuser in your bedroom. It could be the candle. It could be something that just piques your interest and takes you on a journey. It doesn't have to be anything spiritual. It's just tuning into the sense. And this goes for all of the senses. Is when I find myself feeling lost, when I find myself feeling disconnected, how can I tune into my sensations to bring me back to earth? And there's always something. You're never going to lack in ways to ground yourself, so long as you know that these are your tools. So like I said, you don't need to know what the spiritual gurus are doing. You don't need to know the exact process to shadow work. You don't have to know the exact process to how to be in goddess circles or go to retreat. Like, you don't need these exterior things. They're amazing. They're incredible. They actually do facilitate these incredible breakthroughs. Yes. And I have everything within myself. You can cultivate a safe space within yourself. And it does start within you. It starts with your internal landscape. It starts with your own atmosphere. Because when you're anchored into yourself, when you're anchored into that radical self-love where it's not influenced by how you look, it's not influenced by what you do, what you say, how funny, it's not tuned to anything other than your own familiarity within yourself. Knowing yourself is such a devotion to being better for yourself and being better for others. Because when you're better for yourself, you can show up authentically to others, and it's a ripple effect. So put intention behind everything that you do and watch the rest unfold. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Please let me know if anything resonated, what about it. I love hearing y'all's feedback. Leave a review if you feel called to. It would mean the absolute world to me. And I just appreciate you guys so much for honestly sharing your love with me, because hearing your feedback is what keeps me going and inspires me to keep showing up more authentically and more powerfully and be more vulnerable about my story and just show up for you guys too. And I truly just want to keep cultivating this wavy community to really find ourselves and be hand in hand with one another, because that's what it's all about. It really is. So thank y'all so much for tuning in. I am sending you the biggest hugs, and I'll see you in the next one. Namaste.